Nitro with the nice flow. Y'all acting like y'all don't know. Stop acting like y'all don't know.
Joe Campbell.
Who the future? We the future. Who the future? Us. Who the future? We the future. Who the future? Us. Causing chaos in the back of the bus. Get your hands up. We gon' show you how we buzz. Yeah. The future.
On a suddenly not so casual free Friday, it is CFB Knowledge for College Week 11, Friday, November 11th, 2022. The Shark and the Gun. Guns picks. We're early tonight. It's happy hour. It's raining in PA. You're going to Notre Dame tomorrow. What the hell is going on tonight, my brother?
Yes, I am going to Notre Dame tomorrow. Notre Dame and Navy in a letdown spot for Notre Dame, but I still trust in the Irish, and hopefully they come out with an immaculate win. But we're here to talk about college football week 11. It is going by fast. Yes, I had a downtrodden, horrific Saturday. The first one I have had since week 0, by the way, so I'm actually cooking at all cylinders. And I'm going to bounce back big time, and that is going to be a trend to the picks that we make today. So let's get into it. I'm ready. Let's do it.
Yeah, and speaking of bouncing back, talk about bouncing back from basically the history of the entire program. UConn Huskies at home, high noon, East Hartford, Connecticut, hosting Liberty, somehow 8-1 on the campaign. Guns picks, an official play.
Yeah, I mean, you got Liberty coming off a storm the field type game, kumbaya type of situation. They beat Arkansas 21-19, double-digit dogs in that game, minus 113 net yards, however. So they actually did get dominated as far as the yardage is concerned. It came down to a 2-point conversion for Arkansas, and they were able to make the stop. So the highs of highs for this team coming into this game. But they're going against a UConn team that has basically turned the whole entire program around. Jim Moore is doing some crazy things over there with the Huskies. They're coming off back-to-back wins versus BC, UMass. Yes, I know those are bottom feeders, but this is their third straight home game in the last 3 weeks. So I think they're well comfortable, well rested, and well prepared to face a Liberty team that is coming off a 8-1 season so far. They're 8-1 straight up. This team is good when they have an opponent they're motivated for. They beat UAB, they beat BYU, they beat Arkansas, and they only lost to Wake Forest by 1 point. When they're playing a very high-level, high-profile team, they're ready to go. But when we see how they play against lower-level competition, they only beat Akron by 9. They Gardner-Webb, they only beat by 1, to name a few. So coming into a big win situation and then going to travel back on the road, going to UConn, I don't think this team is going to be as prepared as expected. And you also got to look at the Liberty situation as far as the offense is concerned. Their running back, Day Hunter, who's been their life force, the heartbeat of the offense, 854 yards, 6.6 yards per carry. He's out for the rest of the season. So they're going to have to go to a backup running back that only averages 4.1 yards per carry. Doesn't have a lot of experience, so they're not going to have the offense that is going to be generating the number of points that Liberty is used to. Also, look, UConn's 5-5, folks. They are on the cusp of being bowl eligible. They only have 2 games left. They have Liberty and they have Army next week. So I think they're going to play their guts out for Jim Moore here. Also, 8-2 against the spread this year alone. It's pure situational play. You have Liberty coming off a kumbaya staple victory, upset style versus an SEC opponent. Now you got to go and bring that level of motivation to go play a UConn team that has sucked for years, if not decades. Come on now. I think UConn could really give them a push here. I'm getting the number at 13.5. I think they keep this within 1 score, maybe even win this one. Look for UConn to put some pressure on Liberty, but I'll take the 13.5 regardless. This is a 2-unit special for me. UConn, 13.5.
Yeah, and I've seen some 14s out there now as well, so I think people could get that 2 touchdown for a push, which, of course, is a huge advantage point there. I wouldn't talk you off this at all. And as I mentioned, nothing official for me. We appreciate you guys watching. We had a reasonable campaign. It's been in and out of the projects. I was saying to Gunn off the air, craziness with injured quarterbacks all year. We don't totally understand it. And the next play, we're going to Champaign, Illinois, 12 noon as well, 11 out there. Illinois here coming back home off really a confusing loss last week to Michigan State. Their second loss of the campaign, their first one since the second week, a road one at Indiana. Guns picks, a revenge game, and an opportunity to buy a team that has absolutely been a buy team all year. And we don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, when you look at Illinois, they're coming off a home loss to a bad team, Michigan State, 23-15. I went and delved into the numbers. I can't figure out how they lost this game. They're plus 147 net yards, and it was a 0 turnover ratio. It was kind of one of those anomalies. I guess they just couldn't put the ball, the biscuit in the basket, as they say, to put up the points. But look at Purdue. They're coming off back-to-back losses as well to Wisconsin and Iowa. They lost to Iowa last week, 24-3, minus 121 net yard average in that spot. Now, Illinois has been dominant at home. They have a plus 15-point differential at home, plus 222 net yard average. And also, look how they do against conference opponents. They have a plus 8-point differential, plus 139 net yard average. Purdue on the road, totally different dynamic. Minus 1 point differential on the road, plus 68 net yard average. But Purdue versus conference opponents, minus 3 point differential, plus 20 net yard average. Purdue has a strong passing offense. Everybody knows that. They love to pass the ball, 297 yards per game. But Illinois' defense has been a staple for this team. Belema has got these guys cooking. Now, up versus their opponents, they hold their opponents to 232 yards per game, 212 yards per game of total offense at home, and only 153 yards passing to their opponents. They also can put pressure on the quarterback. They have a 9.4% sack rate. Double revenge spot for Illinois. Illinois is good now, and they're ready to beat Purdue. They lost to Purdue last year 13-9 on the road as 11-point dogs, 31-24 in 2020 as 10-point dogs. And they've covered the last 3 matchups. Also, Illinois 9-3 against the spread in their last 12 games, 5-2 against the spread in their last 7 home games, and 6-1 against the spread following a straight-up loss. I think Chase Brown is going to get the gears rolling. He's put up 130 yards plus rushing in the past, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever it is. He's putting up some numbers. I think they're going to be able to score against this Purdue defense, and basically bounce back in a situation where they are leading the Big Ten West and still hold position to make a Big Ten championship. And I still think that they continue that trend. They have a very tough matchup next week versus Michigan. So they're going to want to play very hard, very heavy, especially against Purdue, who stays in the Big Ten West to get a little bit of space. Give me Illinois minus 6.5, 2-unit special.
Yeah, I could never talk you off this. Illinois has been just my bread and butter all year. And looking at the chat here, Fallish Hound, what a great pair of gents. We see you, Fallish Hound. I hope you're having a great night. Great products over the internet. Great conversation on that beautiful Sunday morning show, or what was that, Saturday morning show a couple weeks back. And the best vibes on a beautiful free Friday night is Sharky Waters Nation. 9 words of lifestyle. Ride the wave out of the water. Guns picks, 3:30 p.m. We're going big conference. We're going ACC. We are going to Clemson, South Carolina, I believe it is. It is South Carolina. And you're going to the road locker room, to the surprise of many, I'm sure. And I've made this comment numerous times. People love the bounce back. Years and years ago, people really like to continue to buy things that seem to be the norm. Now they love the bounce back. The bounce back here is absolutely Clemson. But you are going the other direction. You are going Louisville plus 6.5, an official.
Listen, Clemson had their hearts broken and crushed last week to my Irish, and God, did I love every single minute of it. But let's talk about Clemson. Heartbreaking loss to Notre Dame here on the road, 35-14, minus 67 net yard average for the game, minus 2 turnover ratio. This basically killed every single opportunity for them to get in the college playoff, in my opinion. They're going to have a lot of things happen for them to get a spot in. Now, Clemson is known for their defensive line. They have guys that you're going to see playing on Sundays really soon. But if you actually look at what they've done in the past 4 weeks, they've regressed dramatically. They've given up a lot on the ground too. 206 yards on the ground to FSU, 6.1 yards per carry. 124 yards to Cuse, 4.4 yards per carry. And 263 yards last week to Notre Dame, 5.6 yards per carry. And what does Louisville like to do? they love to run the ball. They have a dual threat back there with Malik Cunningham, and they have the running back Tion Evans, who averaged 6.7 yards per carry. The team averages 5.0 yards per carry, 202 yards per game. So Louisville's going to want to run the ball here. Also, you got to look at Clemson in the last 4 games as far as the offense is concerned. They've regressed dramatically. 366 yards of total offense, 193 passing, and they've given up 2.8 sacks per game. So they've been susceptible of getting sacked. And Louisville actually can put pressure on the quarterback. They have 32 sacks this year, 12.4% sack rate, and they average 4 sacks per game in their last 4 games. So you see this Louisville team on the rise. You see this Clemson team regressing. Now, look at the home team in this situation. They've lost 3 out of the last 4 games outright, and it's a revenge spot for Louisville. They lost to Clemson 30-24, and actually, if you look at that box score, Louisville had a chance to win that game. They had the ball at the goal line. They could not push it in, and they ended up losing that game in dramatic fashion, and Clemson ended up taking it over. Clemson also 1-3 against the spread at home this season, 3-9 against the spread at home in their last 12 games. And Louisville has covered 5 out of their last 6 games overall. So you have a Louisville team cooking. They're giving you 7 points because they're trying to tell you, it's like, oh, yeah, Clemson's going to bounce back here. Well, there's statistics that also tell you that when a top 5 team loses to an unranked opponent, that is not typically the case. I think the hit rate is probably 33% against the spread. So look into that. Clemson's dreams are crushed. They can lose the same game twice here. You have a Louisville team that is cooking on a revenge spot. I'm going to take the Louisville +7, and it's a 2.5 unit special for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Obviously, when you lose to a team like Notre Dame, who is not in the national title picture, it's not so much you bounce back because you're inspired and pissed off. Your season was just ripped from your hands by your own inability to perform on the road, obviously in a non-conference game. And I think that was just a weird trap spot last week. Obviously, traveling in the middle of conference season, out of conference, just where they did not perform well whatsoever. And speaking of performing well, we're going Big 12 football, 7 p.m. We were talking about this off the air, but Kansas State comes in here on the road at Baylor with 3 losses on the campaign, 6-3 overall. These 3 losses are what you call representative losses. And what that means is the opponent is pretty damn good. So just because you lost doesn't mean you're bad. And they're on the road at Baylor. Baylor's quality inconsistent at best. Baylor, some of their better performances on the road. Coming home, Adrian Martinez, not injured. Guns picks, an official.
Well, we got to put the bye hat on for this one, don't we? Because we're rolling with Kansas State. Let me tell you what's going on with Kansas State right now. They're coming off a tough loss. They lost to Texas 34-27, and they've lost 2 out of the last 3 games. But Baylor on a different side of the spectrum here. 3 straight wins, including back-to-back road wins over Texas Tech and Oklahoma. Oklahoma, they narrowly won that game 38-35 over them. Kansas, what do? They love to run the ball. They got Adrian Martinez for a reason because they need the legs. And they also have a great running back in the backfield. They average 5.5 yards per carry on the ground, 218 yards rushing per game. Now Baylor, if you actually look at the first 4 weeks of the season, they were tough against the run. But in the last 4 weeks versus conference opponents, they actually give up 4.5 yards per carry, 165 yards on the ground. And that is against some teams that are less strong against the running the ball than Kansas State. Both teams, if you actually look at their last 4 weeks, which I like to put it into the window to see where the teams are as far as the progression is concerned, or regression for that matter. Kansas State plus 8-point differential, plus 72 net yard average. Baylor plus 10-point differential, plus 72 net yards. Identical, right? Well, let's look at the teams that they've played. Kansas State put up numbers like that against Iowa State on the road, at TCU, Oklahoma State, and Texas. It's a pretty good list, right? Well, let's look at the Baylor side. So they played at West Virginia, not a great team. Kansas with no Jalen Daniels, and at Texas Tech, at Oklahoma. Those are lower level teams, in my opinion, than what Kansas State had to face. Also, you got to look at Kansas State. Quad revenge game for them. They lost to Baylor last season at home, 20-10. And if you actually go into the trends, the home team is 0-6 straight up and against the spread, and the underdog is 6-1 against the spread in the last 7 meetings. So I see Kansas State on a bounce back against a Baylor team that is playing a little bit too high for their britches. This is a team that is a lot stronger than what they've faced in the last 4 weeks, and I don't think they're going to be prepared for them, honestly. So I'm going to be rolling with Kansas +3 as a 2U play for me.
Absolutely love that. And taking a breath here, 15 minutes into the broadcast. We appreciate you guys hanging with us as we fought through this entire season. And I want to make a comment. Next year, we'll be back. I will be dropping top officials, and we will run better. Last year, we ran into a lot of clustered public stuff within football. The previous year, we had COVID. And this year, we somehow ran into just the injury quarterback situation. And as Guns mentioned, a prior loss at TCU to an absolutely over-exerting TCU team where Adrian Martinez did get hurt and the backup got hurt. A third-string quarterback was in there. TCU backdoor 38-28. Really systemic and systematic, consistent to what TCU is doing this year. TCU undefeated, now number 8 in the country, on the road this week. Guns picks. This team is destined to lose a game. I'm convinced of it. I've seen how fortunate they've run, injuring quarterbacks week after week, late backdoors, getting one possession backdoors. How long can this team run hot? Texas at home, a primetime Big 12 special. Talk to me on this one.
I mean, the books are even telling you that too. TCU is due for a loss. Listen, they're in the college football playoff as we speak today on 11/11 Veterans Day, Friday. Yes, and they're 9-2 straight up after a home win versus Texas Tech, 34-24 plus 77 net yard average. But you still have Texas favorites. So I started digging a little bit deeper into Texas. Texas is coming off a good road win against Kansas, 34-27. Also, you got to look at Texas offense. They can beat you in the run game. They can beat you in the pass game. They average 5.9 yards per carry on the ground in their last 4 games. So you're starting to see the Texas that was supposed to play that this way in the beginning of the season, but had some stingy moments and some lackluster performances. But I think they've gotten that out of their system. Also, when they pass the ball, 244 yards per game passing. And their offensive line has been absolutely solid. 3.6 sack rate, and they're not allowing defenses to get through them. Now, TCU has dominated most of their opponents at home, but they're not as good statistically on the road. They only have a plus 13 net yard average on the road, where they have a plus 191 at home. And their defense gives up 93 more yards to their opponents and 104 more yards in the passing game on the road. So that's going to play really well. And Quinn Ewers just slinging the ball like a boss in Austin. Now, Texas is 5-1 against the spread at home in their last 6 home games, 7-3 against the spread in their last 10 home games. I know TCU's been red hot. They're 7-1 against the spread in their last 8, but the line is favoring a lower-ranked opponent by a touchdown. That should be telling you a story. The books are telling you that TCU is on borrowed time. They've been on borrowed time for weeks, and they're just backdoor covering. They're just getting through. They're killing quarterbacks. I think Sonny Dykes might have a bounty gate on his situation. It's just a theory. It's just a theory. But when you kill a quarterback 6 weeks in a row, it's starting to get a little bit too trendy, in my opinion. So I think Texas is a better team at home. I think they'll be able to take over. They have a plus 17-point differential at home, and TCU is going to have their first loss of this season, and it's going to be an absolute bloodbath, in my opinion. Hook 'em horns, boys. Hook 'em horns. Give me Texas -7, 2-unit special.
I love it. And as I mentioned, these are not official for me. I might tail some of these. This is some great stuff. And, we've been waiting all year for a lot of these teams to fall off the cliff. You saw it last week with Clemson. TCU has to be next because this team is just not as good as their record, and more specifically, their ATS record, which is way too clean. And S. Warrior, what's going on, brother? You the man. And speaking of being the man, Guns picks. We're going to the next play. We're going ACC football, 7:30 p.m. Wake Forest at home, coming home off 2 losses in conference back-to-back weeks. Tough ones at that. At Louisville, at ranked NC State, not where they function great. Coming home here, catching North Carolina, who is also starting to fit the mold of TCU, Clemson, and Liberty. Somehow 8-1 on the campaign with a freshman quarterback. And their last 3 road games, Guns, all wins by a field goal. We're talking about this. It seems to be the theme of the broadcast. Teams that are way too hot, getting way too fortunate in small windows and clustering where it should come to an end. Wake Forest, an official.
Listen, UNC's on borrowed time too. I'm still shocked they're 8-1 straight up this season, and they're coming off a close win versus UVA, and that should tell you something. The only won by 3 points against UVA. The cookie's got to crumble pretty soon for you. Plus 38 net yards in that game. This is also UNC's 4th road game in their last 5 games, so there could be a little bit of road fatigue coming into the spot. Now, Wake Forest, like Shark said, back-to-back road losses to Louisville and NC State. Minus 8 net yards versus Louisville, plus 89 net yards versus NC State. They've struggled big time in the turnovers. Minus 10 turnover ratio in the last 2 games. They were minus 7 versus Louisville, minus 3 versus NC State. The key to this game is take care of the football and let everything else fall as they may. But UNC, what do they like to do? They love to pass the ball. Drake May's having himself a season. 330 yards passing this per game this season. He has a 9.5 yards per attempt, 31 touchdowns, 3 INTs. But Wake Forest has a really good pass defense. They've done well defending the pass at home. They've only allowed 54% pass completion rate to their opponents and 239 yards per game. Now, Wake Forest is a passing team too, and not too shabby. Sam Hartman is a dog. 309 yards, as long as he's taking care of the football, obviously. 309 yards per game passing, where UNC has struggled stopping the pass. They give up to their opponents 304 yards per game passing on the road, 64.9% pass completion rate. So, advantage Wake Forest with the passing defense, disadvantage for UNC. Revenge game for Wake Forest. We love revenge games, don't we? UNC beat Wake Forest when they were ranked number 10 in the country last year, 58-55 as 2.5-point favorites. And an unranked, I believe it was an unranked UNC team was favored at home minus 2.5. So take that into consideration when you're looking at that Texas one that we just talked about. Now you have Wake Forest sitting here minus 3.5 home favorites. The home team in this spot is 7-0 straight up in the last 7, and the home team is 9-2 against the spread in the last 11 meetings. The favorite is 5-2 against the spread in the last 7. Bounce back situation for Wake Forest off back-to-back road losses. UNC's been playing strong. I'll give them that. But if you actually look at the level of their competition, it's not elite at all. I mean, on the road, they've played App State, Georgia State, Miami, Duke, and UVA. So take that into consideration. Shark just said all those games were extremely close, but Wake Forest is on another level. They're a much better team offensively, and they're a much better pass defense that UNC has faced. So this is my top play of the week, and it's not a 1 unit. It's not a 2 unit. It's a 3 unit banger. And I'm going to be rolling with Wake Forest minus 3.5, 3 unit special.
Love it. All boxes checked. No doubt about that. Last play, we're going Pacific Coast, Pac-12, Corvallis up there in the Pacific Northwest. Oregon State comes home where they function fantastically, a spot we've taken them numerous times this year and last year, both first half and game, facing Cal coming in here off a very representative effort last week against USC. Let down for Cal, bye for Oregon State. Guns picks, final official of the broadcast.
Listen, Cal's coming off a tough road loss. They played USC last week and played them tough. They actually put up 21 points in the fourth quarter and kept it close, 41-35, minus 46 net yards in the game. They've lost 5 straight games, but they've kept it close. I'll give them that. So I think they're having a little bit of wear and rust on this one. Now you got to look at Oregon State. Oregon State's coming off a Friday road loss to Washington, 24-21. Washington was in a revenge spot in that spot, but they were playing on the road. Oregon State is not a road team. It actually came down to Washington driving down the field. They had the field position. They drained the clock and kicked the winning field goal. So they did keep it close, competitive. So there's going to be a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, even though they're playing a bad team in Cal. Like we said, Oregon State, home team, not a road team. 4-1 straight up at home this season, plus 20-point differential at home, plus 109 net yard average. And they've played some decent competition at home this season. And those are pretty damn good stats. Now, Cal on the road this season, minus 9-point differential, minus 46 net yard average. They're 0-4 straight up on the road. And if you want something a little bit extra on this one, guess what? Revenge game. That's right. Oregon State lost to Cal last year, 39-25 as 1.5-point road favorites. You don't think that Oregon State is going to be one to show up on this one? They're sitting at minus 13.5. That's a 12.5-point swing in 1 year. I mean, come on. Home team in this situation is 8-4 against the spread in the last 12 meetings as well. Oregon State is 13-3 against the spread in the last 16 home games, 9-0 at home versus teams with a losing record. Now Cal 1-5 against the spread after an ATS win, which they had versus USC. So I think they may have used all their bullets against USC. Now they're going to go back on the road, go to Corvallis, the toughest of all toughest places to play in the Pac-12. And Oregon State is coming off a loss and a revenge spot. The line is dictating a story here, folks. It's minus 13.5 for a reason. I know Cal is great at covering as a road dog, home dog, any type of dog, but not in this situation, folks. I like Oregon State, and this is a 2.5 unit special for me, minus 13.5.
Absolutely love it. Closing out the broadcast, CFB Knowledge for College, Week 11, the Shark and the Gun. Friday, November 11th, 2022. A beautiful night it is. Guns picks, 7 officials dropped. He's got 8. We cut one out. We will drop it right now. 12 noon, UConn plus 13.5. Illinois also at noon, Eastern minus 6.5. We dropped this one. We felt like I just felt like I didn't want to discuss this game. Marshall money line against App State, official from the Gun, 3:30 p.m. in the Sun Belt. Louisville plus 6.5 on the road. Kansas State plus 3 on the road. 7 p.m. primetime at Baylor. Texas minus 7 to finally beat TCU and hopefully cover as well. Biggest play of the day, Wake Forest catching, previously discussed, North Carolina 8-1, somehow running far too clean of a sheet. And the final play, 9 p.m. Pac-12 football, Oregon State minus 13.5. Guns picks, a pleasure as always. Beautiful evening. Going to enjoy a little food here, chill out. We will be on here on Sunday morning with the Odds Fellow for top NFL looks. If you were following that last week, I said this before, leans only for me. Leans last week went 8-1-2 ATS. Just because it's not official in my bank account doesn't mean I'm not going through it in immense detail for the Circa Millions competition. Guns picks, let's have a night, close them out, and let's fucking go.
Speaking of Sunday, I also went 6-0-2 on Sunday. So as a show, we cooked, and we're going to continue cooking. So make sure you watch us Sunday, 10 a.m. For the sharpest of the sharpest. I wanted to shout out exactly. He asked if I had any plays tonight. I do have one play. It's 8 o'clock, and I love Cincy minus 4.5. I think they're going to be able to rock this ECU team after playing flat after flat after flat in the last 3 weeks. So it's Cincy at home, so take them minus 4.5. But that's going to do it for Week 11. Shark and the Gun, Knowledge for College. And make sure I am going to be at the Notre Dame game tomorrow. So if you see my stupid ass, say hello. I am a nice guy. Trust me, I will not shy away from you. But until Sunday, 10 a.m., we'll see you. Thanks for joining. Share, like, retweet, hit the thumbs up, and make sure you get us in the algorithm so everybody can see all these gorgeous plays. But till then, see you next time. Peace.